Hello, everyone. This is Yana Smakula for SimonsSTM.com. Welcome back for another Yippee For Yana episode. In this video, I'm creating a graduation card with a new stamp set from Simons STM called Grad Balloons. So here's a look at the stamp set. I love the style in which this is illustrated. It's very fun and playful. We have the Congrats Grad, that's a very large sentiment, done in the balloon style. Love those. We also have two graduation hats, some confetti. We also have some additional sentiments that can go really well with the Congrats Grad sentiment, the main sentiment. And then, of course, we have some strings for our balloons. And then there's another regular shape balloon as well. I'm going to go ahead and start working on my card by doing some stamping. So here I have my Mini Misty stamping tool. I have placed a sheet of Simons Stamp 130-pound cardstock inside my Misty. I have mentioned this 100 times, if not 1,000 times, but I absolutely love this paper by Simons Stamp. I think it is the best paper out there, and I love to use this cardstock for quite a lot of different things, mostly because of how smooth this paper is and also how thick this paper is. So it's 130-pound cardstock. So that tells you it is pretty thick, but also it is very nice and smooth. It works great for ink blending, works great for Copic coloring or alcohol marker coloring. It works great for foiling if you like to do that as well. And it even works great for better pressing. These are like my main favorite techniques to do. I also love to use this paper whenever I need to stamp something and cut it out using a coordinating die, because this results in a very sturdy die cut. So here I am stamping the Congrats Grad sentiment in embossing ink, and I'm going to add antique gold embossing powder on top and heat set this image using my heat tool. I did use an anti-static powder tool, and I treated my paper before I did any stamping to eliminate, greasy fingers, to eliminate static or anything like that that I might have had on my paper, to make sure the embossing would end up looking really nice and neat. So I funneled the embossing powder back into the jar, and now I'm ready to heat set this using my heat tool. I'm going to get my heat tool nice and hot. That's the key to prevent your paper from warping. And I'm going to start heating this from the back of the paper. Sometimes I like to do that. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter if you are using specialty embossing powder with glitter mixed into it, because sometimes you don't want the glitter to fly away. And if you heat your paper from the back, that sort of stops that from happening. I'm not using that type of embossing powder today. This is just regular embossing powder from Simons Stamp. This is the antique gold color. By the way, it is like my all-time favorite embossing powder color. And I'm just heat setting it using the heat tool. And check that out. I think this sentiment looks just fantastic. I love it. Love the playful balloon style here. Okay, I'm going to use scissors and cut this off, and I'm doing that because I want to do some additional stamping on the rest of this image. I want to stamp the party hats in my Mini Misty stamping tool. I did use my trimmer to make sure I have straight edges, and I did that because I knew I would be flipping this paper in my Misty, and I kind of wanted to ensure there would be no error. So here I have my two graduation hats. I'm going to position them on my paper, close the lid of my Misty, and stamp those using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. This is alcohol marker friendly ink, and since I will be coloring these party hats using Copic markers, this is my ink of choice today. So I'm going to flip my paper and stamp two more hats. I will end up stamping 8 hats, graduation hats for my card. I will use 7 for this card. And I also made another graduation card, identical, with 7 more of these party hats. I'm not going to show you the stamping process because it is very simple and repetitive. We're just stamping party hats onto paper. And by the way, this is the exact same cardstock, the Simons Stamp 130-pound cardstock. Next, we're going to do some coloring. I'm going to use yellow and blue color combination. And here I'm starting with a Y17. This is my darker yellow. And I'm using this color to flick it onto the tassel. Next, I have Y15, and this is my lighter yellow, and I'm using this color to fill the rest of the tassel shape in. I'm going to go back to my Y17 and flick some more of this darker yellow. I'm doing the flick style coloring here, at least not doing it with both yellow colors, but just with the darker yellow to have a more organic looking tassel. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Although the tassel image is so small, you really won't be able to see that. Okay, next I'm using blue markers to color the graduation cap. And here I'm starting with a B99. This is the absolute darkest blue that I have in my stash, or I would probably say the absolute darkest blue available from Copic, but don't quote me on that. I'm not quite sure. I think it is, but I might be wrong. Next, I'm using B97. This is my medium blue, and here I'm using this to extend the darkest blue further, a little bit further into my image. And next, I'm coming in with my lightest blue, which is the B45, and I'm using that to color the rest of the shape in. So very simple coloring, nothing fancy here. I just created some shadows here and there. The shadows are not going to look natural, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. They're not going to look natural on the finished card because I know I will be rotating the graduation caps. They will look as if some of them are flying in the air. So the shading needs to be different in order to look correct, but I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just adding shading in the exact same spot on all of my images. So I used coordinating dies and I cut these images out, and now we can begin assembling our card. I went ahead and added foam adhesive squares to the back of each. So I have foam adhesive squares on the back of the Congrats Grad and also on the back of the party hats. So here I'm using regular thickness foam adhesive squares. I also have a panel of Simon Says Stamp soft navy cardstock. This is cut to, let me remember, 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. So this is going to be slightly smaller than my A2 card. Now, I want to add a little bit of interest to the background here. And in order to do that, I'm going to use the confetti stamp from this stamp set. And I'm going to use it to fill the entire background in. If you want, you can simplify things by using a background stamp. But I wanted to make sure that my background stamping did not go all the way to the edge. If you look closely, you will notice that I am leaving about a 1/4 inch gap on each side, and I'm focusing my stamping just in the center. So I am adding interest. I am creating a stamped background here, but it does not extend all the way to the edge. I quite like this look. I feel like, it just looks contained, and I just prefer it. I don't know. Anyhow, next I have a 1/2 letter sheet of that same Simon Says Stamp soft navy cardstock, and I just used my Spellbinders trimmer to score this at the 4 1/4 inch mark. Next, I'm using a bone folder. I was trying to find my Teflon bone folder, but I couldn't. I mean, I just saw it on my desk, but it walked away. So I had to use my plastic bone folder to burnish the fold on this card. So my card base is going to be soft navy, and then my background is made using that same color of cardstock. So it's all going to look tone on tone. Now I do want to add dimension, so I'm using a sheet of black fun foam. You can use foam adhesive squares or scrap paper if you don't have fun foam in your stash. And I'm using that to pop my main background panel onto my card. So we're doing, like I said, tone on tone. I see quite a lot of that in interior design these days, and I'm really into interior design these days as I am renovating my apartment. Anyhow, with that done, I'm going to plan the placement of the graduation caps on my card, and I'm going to have 4 caps at the top on the top row and then 3 caps on the bottom row. I feel like this gives me an odd number of caps and an odd number of elements, whatever the elements are, always looks better on a card. So I tried doing 6 graduation caps, and while that looked okay, I have found that adding 7 caps actually worked better. So here I'm also adding a thin foam adhesive square to a part of this die cut, of each of these die cuts, and I'm sort of slanting them on my background. So I want there to be a little bit of difference in the height or in the dimension of my die cuts. So I have caps, the graduation caps, placed sort of at an angle. With that done, I am next using sequins. These are the Spellbinders sequins. I believe these are either gold or peach. I'm not quite sure because I did not save the packaging and I did not write the name of these down. So you will have to forgive me for not knowing the exact name of these sequins. I'm using the Simon Says Stamp embellishment wand to place these onto my card. And once I'm happy with the placement, I'm going to use Barely Art glue and glue these in place. Now my card needs a white panel for the inside for a personalized message. And I also wanted to add a white panel to the inside because I wanted to add some stamping. If you remember, I showed you the stamp set at the beginning of this video, and I mentioned that there are some fun additional sentiments included, and these go really well with a congrats message. So I wanted to add a sub-sentiment onto the inside of my card to continue that congratulatory sentiment on the front. I stamped well done for this card. I'm just going to use my tape runner to add it onto the inside of the card. Super easy to do, and I feel like that finishes the card nicely. So we have Congrats Grad, well done on this card, and then Congrats Grad, so proud of you on my other card. So here's a look at the graduation cards I have for you today, created with the Simon Says Stamp Grad Balloons stamp set. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.